I'm Austin Cheney here in the 13 WMAZ Weather Center, and we're continuing to monitor a very dangerous Hurricane Dorian this afternoon. Here's the latest advisory from the National Hurricane Center. Dorian is a Category 4 storm with winds sustained at 150 miles an hour. But earlier today, the hurricane hunters were in the center of the storm and actually found winds of 166 miles an hour. So it wouldn't surprise me if later today they go ahead and bump this up to a Category 5 hurricane. Now, even though we're dealing with a very strong hurricane this afternoon, it's not all bad news with Dorian, especially when it comes to the projected path. So here's the latest forecast from the Hurricane Center. Of course, it brings this extremely dangerous storm close to the northern Bahamas later this weekend and towards Labor Day as either a very strong Category 4 hurricane, potentially a Category 5 if it is able to gain some wind speed. After we get past Monday, this is where we continue to see big changes in the forecast as models continue to trend further and further east with every run. So now by late in your Memorial Day going into Tuesday, the Hurricane Center now expects the storm to make a turn to the north well before reaching the Florida coastline. So that would keep Florida on the western side, the cleaner side of the circulation, and it will also be weakening as the system moves further to the north. Now, I do want to caution you as we continue to kind of tell you how the forecast is improving. Florida and the Georgia coastline is still in the cone of uncertainty. So while we can't completely rule out the possibility of a landfall, it is becoming less likely. Also notice how central Georgia has been taken almost out of the cone of uncertainty. It's looking more likely that this system will pass to our east. Now, heads up if you do have some interest up there in coastal North Carolina, as now it looks like parts of North Carolina or maybe the Outer Banks may be able to see some impacts of this as a Category 2 hurricane later on next week. All right, so let's get into some of the models. Of course, all eyes have been on these spaghetti plots over the last couple days. These are the models that the Hurricane Center uses to fine-tune the track. And notice almost all of them keep it off of the Florida coast and Georgia coast, and most importantly, southeast of us here in central Georgia. So here's how it plays out on the RPM model and the European model. Of course, over the next couple of days, it will continue intensifying as it heads towards the northern Bahamas. And then it'll make that turn to the north, and the RPM model has been very consistent with keeping the system off of the Florida coastline. So great news there. Now the European model will take over as we get towards the extended part of the forecast. And as you can see, we're not even seeing much rain with this system as it passes on by. So parts of the southeastern coastline could still see some tropical storm force wind gusts if this were to occur. But as of now, it looks like most of Florida and Georgia and even most of South Carolina are going to miss out on potentially catastrophic impacts from a Category 4 hurricane. So some good news there. As far as potential wind gusts could go locally, it's really not going to be all that bad as we go through Monday and Tuesday. Nothing out of the ordinary. Here we go on Wednesday. The storm is getting closer to us, and we could see some increased gusts in the order of 25 to 35 miles an hour. But it is looking less likely that we see tropical storm force gusts on Wednesday. So we can definitely handle wind speeds like that, especially if we don't see the rain. Remember, we're expecting the system to pass to our east, keeping us on the western side. That's a very dry side of the system. And so with no rainfall, our ground will be dry, and that should allow us to handle those 25 to 35 mile an hour gusts rather easily. We'll continue updating the forecast, of course, on Facebook, online, and coming up on 13 WMAZ News.